You're about to see what no one wanted to see on camera. From tractors sinking into wet concrete to multi-million-dollar cranes collapsing in seconds. These failures were so costly that they still give us nightmares, and they were all caught on camera. Stay until the end, because the last mistake is so absurd that it seems like a movie script. Imagine investing years of planning, millions in engineering and logistics, only to see it all fall apart in less than 10 seconds. That's exactly what happened at this construction site in Asia. Security cameras captured the moment a gigantic crane, valued at more than $20 million, simply collapsed before the eyes of dozens of workers. The footage shows the equipment slowly rotating as it moved a nearly 10-ton piece of concrete. For a few moments, everything seemed under control, until a slight tilt at the base was enough to turn the operation into a nightmare. The ground gave way, the tower tilted, and within seconds, the crane arm fell violently onto the newly constructed structure. What caused it? A double error. First, the soil was not compacted enough to support the dynamic weight of the crane and the load. Second, the load was moved with the boom too far extended, creating a fatal lever. An engineer on site later admitted it was a miscalculation that should not have happened even at a basic design stage. The crane was completely lost, as was part of the construction structure. In addition, the construction site was closed for months, and the construction company was fined for negligence. The total loss exceeded $20 million, not to mention the reputational damage. Fortunately, there were no deaths, only minor injuries. This accident became a case study in civil engineering schools. The video was shown at international conferences as a warning about the importance of soil surveys and the correct use of counterweights. Many new engineers learned from this failure, which cost a fortune. And that was just the beginning. The next case is even more unbelievable. A $500,000 excavator sinking in front of the cameras as if it were in quicksand. You won't believe the stupidity that caused this. It was supposed to be just another ordinary day at work on a construction site on the banks of an industrial river. The experienced excavator operator confidently maneuvered a machine valued at more than $600,000. Equipped with cutting-edge technology, an armored cabin, and high traction tracks. But it took less than 2 minutes for this operation to turn into a mechanical tragedy recorded by cell phones and security cameras. The images show the exact moment the excavator tries to break through seemingly solid ground. The dry soil on the surface was hiding a deep layer of unstable mud, the result of weeks of rain and a lack of geotechnical analysis. When the boom began to rotate under the load, the support base suddenly sank. First, one side gave way. Then the other sank as if in quicksand. Within seconds, the cabin had completely disappeared, leaving only the tip of the mechanical shovel visible. The operator narrowly escaped, being rescued by colleagues who rushed to his aid before the vehicle disappeared completely. The mistake: underestimating the soil type. No probing was done before the heavy lifting. The surface appeared firm, but the base was saturated. An engineer interviewed after the incident explained, "It's like stepping on a carpet that's covered in water. You don't know it until you're in." In addition, the excavator was equipped with a higher load than recommended for that type of terrain. The machine was declared a total loss. The cost of salvaging it exceeded the value of the equipment itself, and since it had been submerged for hours, the electronic and hydraulic systems were beyond repair. In addition, the company was fined for environmental damage as oil and contaminants leaked into the ground near the river. Total estimated cost: over $700,000. This accident happened before the eyes of a team that had just received safety training. The footage was used in the construction company's own internal material as an example of how hasty decisions ignore obvious risks. And if you think that was absurd, wait until you see the next case. A fleet of trucks stuck in freshly laid asphalt in broad daylight. A grotesque failure of coordination that stopped traffic for hours and cost millions. The scene is so unbelievable that it seems like a joke, but it is real. And you will see it with your own eyes. One of the most bizarre scenes in modern engineering took place on a newly resurfaced highway in the United States. It was a fast-paced resurfacing operation, with cement trucks and trailers loaded with material driving over the new asphalt. Everything was going as planned until the heat and lack of synchronization revealed the error that would turn into a multi-million-dollar nightmare. The images, captured by an amateur drone and security cameras on the road, show the moment when 3 heavy trucks slowly begin to sink into the new asphalt. At first, it seems that the tires are just slipping, but reality soon sets in. The asphalt was still too hot, with temperatures above 140 degrees, and had not received the minimum time to cool and compact. As the trucks moved forward, their tires began to sink, tearing up the still soft surface and creating deep holes. Axles began to give way, parts of the cargo tipped over, and what was supposed to be a straightforward delivery turned into a logistical horror show, all recorded in real time. The asphalt had been laid hours earlier, but the engineering team released heavy traffic without consulting the engineer responsible for cooling. In addition, ground temperature sensors, which should have warned of a risk of collapse, were turned off due to lack of maintenance. The intense heat of the afternoon aggravated the problem, keeping the surface malleable for much longer than expected. All of the trucks had their tires and suspension systems destroyed. But the greatest damage was to the paving. Around 8 kilometers of new asphalt had to be removed and redone. The total cost of the repair operation exceeded $3 million, not counting the blocking of the highway, which generated contractual fines and immeasurable logistical losses. The accident made national headlines. One of the drivers said, outraged, "We followed the plan. No one told us the ground was still melting." The images went viral on social media with memes like "Hot Chocolate Highway." There was a clear protocol in the operations manual that said, "Wait at least 6 hours after finishing resurfacing." This simple detail would have prevented millions in losses. But if you think you've seen it all, wait until you see what happened when a runaway freight train plowed through a logistics terminal and destroyed everything in its path. The video looks like a scene from Hollywood, but it's real and shocking. A freight train, with more than 40 cars and loaded with industrial containers, was approaching a logistics terminal on the east coast of the United States. The track was clear, the ground crew was ready, and everything seemed under control. But all it took was a single misconfigured button to turn a routine operation into one of the biggest railway catastrophes of the decade, captured by multiple security cameras. The footage shows the train coming at a moderate speed but with no signs of slowing down. Workers, realizing something was wrong, began running away from the tracks. Within seconds, the train crashed through the safety barriers, knocked down part of the unloading terminal and dragged dozens of containers before finally coming to a stop in the middle of total chaos. Further investigation revealed that the automated braking system had been manually disabled hours earlier during internal maintenance. Maintenance staff had forgotten to reactivate the automatic programmed braking mode. When the train entered the deceleration zone, there was no one in the cab to take control. The driver had stepped off shortly before, relying entirely on the automatic system. More than 300 meters of platform were destroyed, loading cranes were knocked over, and the tracks suffered severe structural damage. Several containers were crushed, including loads of high-tech equipment and industrial chemicals, which forced the evacuation of the area as a precaution. Between destroyed infrastructure, lost cargo, and environmental fines, the calculations pointed to a loss of over $12 million. This does not include logistical delays and the interruption of international operations for more than a week. Insurance did not cover the entire loss, and part of the costs were borne by the railway operating company. Even with so many modern safety systems, the failure was due to something incredibly simple: a button that wasn't reactivated. This exposes a harsh truth in heavy industry. Sometimes human error trumps technology, and all this due to a single oversight. Imagine what went through the head engineer's mind when he saw the images for the first time. The sound of the containers crashing together still echoes in the memories of the local team. They say they have never looked at a train the same way again, but nothing, absolutely nothing, compares to what you'll see in the next case. A demolition machine that, due to a structural error, knocked down the wrong bridge. An error that literally destroyed the planning of an entire city. The scene is so absurd that you'll have to see it twice to believe it. When a city prepares for months to demolish an old bridge, everything is calculated to the millimeter. Engineering, scheduling, traffic isolation, evacuation of the area, Every second counts. But in an incredible case recorded in the United States, a communication failure combined with an execution error turned a safe demolition project into a catastrophic collapse. The wrong bridge collapsed. The footage captured by the company's own drones shows the exact moment the hydraulic excavator equipped with a demolition arm begins work. The problem? It shouldn't have been there. That part of the bridge was still active, connecting important neighborhoods. And the operator didn't know it. Following incorrect orders, he began the demolition at the wrong base, causing an instant collapse that brought down the most vulnerable segment of the structure, taking with it poles, part of the wiring, and a walkway that crossed the river. The error began at the control center. The digital map used by the supervisor was out of date. In a cruel twist of irony, the already demolished section had been restructured months earlier, while the unstable section was still awaiting reinforcement. The demolition order was sent via radio, without cross-checking. Result, the operator, trusting the superior command, started the work at the wrong point. The collapse resulted in a complete road closure and power outages in 3 neighborhoods. Thousands of people were stranded for days. Emergency work was initiated, and a temporary bridge was hastily installed by retired military personnel. The total cost of the reconstruction, including compensation, was $15 million, and the original schedule was more than 10 months behind schedule. Residents filmed the collapse with their cell phones. Children cried, and elderly people had to be evacuated by ambulance via secondary routes. A 78-year-old man, who used the walkway every day to visit his wife in the hospital, cried in an interview when he saw the rubble. It was just a bridge for them. For me, it was the path to her. The scene of the excavator standing in front of the rubble became a symbol of what a simple mistake can cause. The operator, visibly shaken, asked to take a leave of absence and never operated a machine again. The image of the motionless machine, surrounded by debris and sirens, spread throughout the country. An image of how the collapse was not only physical, but also human. These failures are more than accidents. They're reminders that behind every machine there's always a human. And when mistakes happen, the price can be measured in millions or in lives. If you found this video impressive, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. Comment below, which of these failures was the most unbelievable for you? See you in the next video with more real stories of machines, power, and consequences. See you then.